Alright guys, welcome back to Batdog Garage. Today's video is going to be part one of a huge, massive build in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers van. And this van belongs to my buddy Will, who I met at Steel Valley. Will saw Eric White's Camaro that I built. Eric competed with it in both single seat, two seat. Will loved the way the car sounded. And he kept telling me about this van he owned that was at a shop and he just couldn't get what he wanted out of the van. To give you a brief rundown of what was in this van, there were 14 JL Audio HD series amplifiers, 4 13W7s, 2 8W7s, a door full of speakers. There was a Audio Frog GS693 6x9, a pair of GB60s, a pair of GB15s mounted overhead, multiple sets of Focal mids and tweets and the A-pillars, 2 Helix DSP Pro Mark II processors, 2 JL Audio Tweak 88 processors, just tons and tons and tons of gear in this vehicle. And what this vehicle was Will would take it out tailgating, but the sound quality, even with all that equipment, just was not there. And Will kept telling me, Jason, I need to bring my van to you. I want you to work on my van. And at the time, I lived in Virginia. I didn't have but a 2-car garage, and I couldn't physically take on that big of a project in that 2-car garage. So we moved down here, and we ended up in the space we're in now, where I initially had a 7-car garage, but after building the wood shop, I'm down to only 5 bays. So between my personal cars and project vehicles, space gets taken up pretty quickly. It's the old saying, your shop is never really big enough. So we moved down here, and before I could even get the shop built, Will sent the van to me. And we had a lot of back and forth conversation about the van before it arrived. And I'm going to tell you guys now, Will told me he had over $100,000 in this van as it sat before it came here. And he just wasn't happy with the way it sounded. He wasn't happy with it, just in general. So the van gets here, and it was delivered. I get in it and I listen, and I'm just like, wow, this is it. This is all it does. I broke out the meter, and I've got screenshots of everything, with an HD 1200/1 powering each 13W7. Each in its own ported enclosure, and then there were 2 8W7s in the center console, and those 2 8W7s were each powered by the 5th channel of a JL HD 905, so they're getting 500 watts apiece. So you got 4,800 watts going to the 13W7s and 1,000 going to the 2 8, so 5,800 watts. I did SPL measurements, and the highest I got out of it was a 140.9. So that wasn't there. The sound quality was atrocious. And when I went through the processors to see what had been done in the processors, crossovers had been set on the channels. There was some time alignment that had been done, but there were 4 channels total that were EQ'd, and they were EQ'd as 2 channels because those 4 channels were EQ'd in one of the Tweak 88s. And they were linked. If you guys are familiar with the JL Tweak software, you know you can link channels 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 would be left, right. Those channels are linked, and they're EQ'd as 1 channel. So there was no individual EQ per side of the vehicle. So it was atrocious. I decided to start investigating everything and look at what it was going to take to work on the vehicle. And the deeper I dug into it, the more I realized that there were numerous issues with the way it was built. There was a stack of amplifiers in the back of the vehicle. The HDs, they have stack mount kits. You guys know what I'm talking about. So they're stack mounted, but across the top, there was an MDF lid to the enclosure that was not removable. There was a logo for the shop there in the middle that was removable, but the actual lid to that enclosure was not. So if you had any issue with an amplifier, you had no physical way to really get in there and remove the amplifiers and get to them. So right there, maintenance and service was horrible. As I went deeper, and you guys will see this in the video, as I went deeper, I found fuses that were hidden between the subwall and that amp rack. So there were fuses down in the back mounted to one of the sub enclosures that if I had not completely disassembled the vehicle, I would not have seen it. A major one was his power cable ran through the sheet metal of the floor of the vehicle with just the 3M strip caulk. You guys know it as Dum Dum. It was just kind of shoved around there, and stuff had collected to it. It was all nasty looking. It looked like a koala's asshole. So it was just safety issue after safety issue after safety issue. Pull the knee pad under the steering column, and his remote start wires were split apart, and they put the remote start system, they just shoved it in there and then taped it up. All of this is on video, and I'll show you that here. The 8W7s that were in the center console, they're mounted obviously inverted. Two different enclosure sizes for each 8W7. They were sealed, supposed to be sealed. You'll see as they were mounted, they were not sealed. Screws that should be into wood were not, so the screws are just kind of banging against the inside of the surround. One of the 8W7s, you guys know the JL subs, they come with those nice little plastic inserts that press into the vented pole piece on the motor. One of them had that cover off. The other one, that cover was in there, so that sub was just choked and throttled right there from the beginning because the pole piece was blocked. I don't want to say, but this is the single worst vehicle I've ever seen. And it's sad because Will spent so much money on it. So this video, I apologize right now for not only the length of it. I have 31 minutes here of video, but the quality of it, because this was taken on an old phone when I didn't care about a YouTube channel. I was just shooting this and uploading it to social media so Will could see what I was finding as I dug into the vehicle, because as you guys know, you go to a shop, you pay them your money, and you expect, you know, them to do things properly and for everything to work as it should. You guys have seen my sound deadening videos. You're going to see how sound deadening was done on this vehicle. There's a lot of stuff here that is just, it's just bad. I hate to say it. I hate the fact that I'm having to go through this after he spent so much money on it. I remember one of the big parts of our conversation was, Will, I do not want to have to gut this thing and tear it apart because you've already spent so much money. And I'll never forget this. Will said, Jason, I understand, but we'll have this conversation when it gets to you and you see it. And I hate to say it, he was right. It's bad. So here comes 31 minutes of potato quality video, but it will explain what I ran into, and I want you guys to see this because this is stuff that I posted to social media to show not only the owner, but to show other people that, hey, this is, you know, this is what happens. Some people just, I don't know. I would not be able to feel good about sending something like this out and expecting someone to be happy with it. There's no way I could send a vehicle like this out and go, here you go, and take their money and feel good about that. So again, I'm going to stop talking. We're already 9+ minutes into me going. So here's the video. I may interject here and there as we go through it, but let's get started. So this video that's coming up is a walkthrough video that the owner shot as he was at the shop getting ready to pick it up. A lot of the sound that you're hearing here is coming from the overhead, and those were on. Again, this is how it looked. It looked good on the exterior. The issue is there were small things like I say small things, if you move the seat forward, if you're short, the pods that are on the doors, you physically could not close the doors. The seats had to be moved back for you to close. If you had short legs, couldn't really drive the vehicle. So again, video from the owner. So coming around the back, you see the amp rack there, the window there where the amp rack is, you could remove. You have cannons. The cannons actually have speakers in them. We've got the football heads, the Bucs logo, we've got an overhead screen and some speakers up there. Again, those amplifiers you could not access. There was a removable panel there in the center you can see that has the shop logo on it, but you could not get access to the amplifiers to do maintenance on them. Coming around here, going in the side door of the van, you can get a glimpse of the center console. These are the overhead speakers that he used for tailgating. They sounded pretty good, actually. Coming back in, we'll get to see the wall for the 4 13W7s. And each 13W7 was in its own ported enclosure. So you had that big disc in the center, and you had some small vents around where the 13W7s could play through. On the opposite side, you can see the door pod on the panel there. Same thing here on the passenger side. Again, door panel, and again, when the seats were forward, you couldn't close the door. Audio Frog GB60s, GB15s, and the GS693 up there, and showing us the dash there. So that is the build pretty much. You got a last glimpse of the door pods. Now this next clip, I'm already into teardown of the vehicle, and I'm in the back here looking at the amplifiers. In that first video, you saw all these HD amplifiers stacked up. Well, I had to remove that stuff, and this is what I found as I remove it. As I point out the 2 batteries that are behind the amp rack and what was the subwall, I want you to know there was like 3-4 more batteries stacked on top of the 2 batteries that are there, and there was nothing physically securing them there. They were all gravity mounted, and they were between the subwall and this amp rack, and then there was a trim panel there that hid the batteries. But there was nothing actually mounting these to the vehicle. All right, guys, this is the end of where I am today with this thing. You see the dust. Took a jigsaw and I cut the top plate out of this. There was nothing removable, so you had access to those racks. You know, those stacks of amplifiers that were here. There was no access to them, so I had to disassemble them. I got down to the bottom, and I said that there were screws coming up from the bottom side. Well, here's those screw heads coming up. So the shank of that is threaded into the bottom of the amplifier. These amplifiers typically top mount. You put a screw in here and you're good. And it's not like the pieces for the stack kit threaded onto the shank of those screws. Those thread in here. So I'm down to 3 amplifiers. I'll take those out once I get this big piece out. I can't get this piece out because every speaker cable and every power cable is ran through the floor of this amp rack. There's a set of JLRCAs that were not hooked up to anything. So all of this just kind of lives there. There's no access to it. When you guys saw the stack of stuff, there was no access to any of this. This lid that was on here was solid. You couldn't get to it that way. The only way to get to it was to work in this little crevice, disassemble one, try to unplug it, and keep going until you got down to whichever amplifier was bad. And if this one was bad, good luck getting it out, because you can see where I am. Anyway, 2 batteries here. Still cannot get those out because this doesn't come out due to the cabling. And this sub, I can't move yet because guess what? All of this power and fusing is connected to the back of the subwall. Well, to get to that, I'm gonna get this joker out. These batteries were trapped between the subwall and this amp rack. Yeah, I didn't want to have to gut this thing, but it's where I am. So this next clip, you can see I've removed the speakers from the doors, and I look at the driver's side and I tap on it. There's no sound deadening on that exterior skin. And then I show you into the cutouts for the speakers. You can see the exterior skin of the door with no sound treatment on it, and you can see the interior skin of that driver's side door, and you can see that there had once been sound deadening there, but it had been pulled off. Then I move over to the passenger side, and you can see that there's some Dynamat that is stuck to the door on the interior skin there. So again, stuff that's hidden that you don't see, but this was shot so I could show the owner and show you guys. Now with that passenger side door panel removed, I started looking at the install quality of this Dynamat. And guys, you should never be able to pull your sound deadener off in the way that this comes off. It comes off effortlessly. And the reason for that is because it wasn't rolled on. And even if it was rolled on, there's a lot of dust and dirt that is on that interior door skin that just, it wasn't going to adhere well. And if you guys have seen my sound deadening videos in the past, like on the Audi, you do not need to treat that interior door skin 100% like this is. It's just kind of a waste of material anyway. Okay, passenger side door and sound deadening. You can see like the splotches on this door where there's discolored spots and then there isn't. These discolored spots are where sound deadener was pressed against it and actually touching. You can see that. The other areas, like all of this here, all of this, no sound deadening was touching anything there. You can see here, it was touching up here, but not here below it. Spots here and there it was touching. Same thing down here. It was touching right around this edge, but it wasn't touching here. As a matter of fact, if I wipe my hand, see the dust there? There was never anything there. So I come out to pick up this guy and this screw. They're here, and the sill plate moves. So let's flip over the sill plate. Yep, tab's broken. Tab's broken, no clips. Passenger side sill plate. I know some of you guys heard me say, look like a koala's asshole. Here it is. So that shit was safe. Okay, seats. This is the passenger side rear. It had factory nuts and bolts securing it in place. And then we move up to the front. This guy right here, I can move. That should show up in the video. It's loose. I have not put a tool on that. And on the other side, let's see what we've got here. That one's actually tight. Let's go look at the driver's side before I shut this video off. We're gonna look at it. In the back here, that's not factory, that's not factory, but they're both. Okay, so this is the center console for this van. You can see that there's a frame that has been welded up and made for this thing. There's no feet to actually, this is just kind of there. There's no feet to actually secure this to the floor. This was another item that was just gravity mount. Now the issue here is I can remove this screw. This screw just spins in place. This screw spins in place. This screw, it's fallen down now, but it was sticking up. Let's see if I can spinning. spinning. That one actually came out. Let's keep going. That one's unthreading. Let's try this one. That one's coming out. That one came out. That one threaded out. That one threaded. This. That one's at a pretty severe angle. I don't know if you can see that in the video. Move this way so they can. So that leaves 1, 2, 3 that are not threaded in, which means it'll just lift right out. Now let's move over to subwoofer number 2. See if we have better luck on that one. All right. I haven't touched any screws on this one. I don't know where this paper came from. All right, first thing I see is a missing screw. This screw is not all the way down. You can see the shadow there where the head is raised up. Let's see if it unthreads. There's your screw holding your 8W7 in. This screw, I don't know if you can see the shadow, the screw head's also raised up off the surface on this one. Another 8W7 mounting screw. It looks like we got the same size screws here. That one was fully seated. At least these are actually threaded into the wood. Another one that's fully seated, so that's good. Another that's fully seated. Here's another one that's missing. Yep, that's completely missing. Let's go around here. Look at this. I haven't been here yet. You guys saw all of this on video. Where's the other light? So, you guys counted the screws I removed. You can count them in the video. Go back and rewatch it.
That's where the paper came from.
Yep, paper. All right. Oh, look at that. There's the rest of the screws. Oh, the screws we were missing? There they are. Yeah, so they're technically with the sub. All right, so that's those 8W7s now. Let's look at this. Why was there no screw? There wasn't shit for them to thread into. That's the reason screws were missing. And over here where stuff was at an extreme angle, same thing. Look at that. It's just barely, there's hardly any material there. You can pick that apart with your thumb. This is literally nothing right there. Same thing here. This is, yeah. So, this guy's also going to the trash. honestly, it's hard for me to watch these clips again, because at the time it was just so frustrating. And it's frustrating now because the next clip is the wiring that was under that knee pad on the driver's side, under the steering column. And for those of you that have had to go in and work on the vehicle after another shop has been in there, you really appreciate when things are done clean, neatly, and color code as far as wiring is followed. In this instance, I had speaker cable that was used for RCAs. I had speaker cable used for speakers, speaker cable used for power and ground, and I would have multiple colors of cable running into a common point and dispersing from there. So I had no clue what I was looking at. You would think that yellow is this, blue is this, green is this. So it didn't work like that. They all came together and they were twist taped together. So for those of you that have been working on a vehicle and hear somebody, you complain about it and somebody goes, well, it could be worse. This is the worst they're talking about. Okay, so I'm removing this USB that was in this knee panel. I follow cabling up. It comes up into this guy, which then comes into factory wiring, which then has been stripped, and there's this speaker cable braided and running elsewhere. So I don't know where these guys go. There's speaker cable that's ground. This guy, the other side, is positive. So that's the reason all of this has to be gutted. I can't troubleshoot anything with it the way it is, because you see speaker cable, you assume it's speaker cable, but it's used for power and ground. It's been used for everything in here. So yeah, and then nothing soldered. So there it is. Okay, so I'm making progress, pulling cables. I've pretty much got everything out here. These guys here run up to the overhead. I'm not too worried about those. I've got the red, white, and black there. This guy comes and ties in across to the other side. So now I get to the other side, and I see this. So these wires were actually bundled with that. And then there's this purple wire and this black wire that are bundled that way. Here is more. They were bundled like this. You can see where this zip tie was around it. Let's see. I've pulled some stuff like this apart already through this van. I've dropped all of that, but as I ran along here, I found a lot of it. Is there more up here? Yeah, here's some here. Look at that. Dum-dum, and then a zip tie. I've never seen some shit like this. It's creative, I guess. There it is. So I said these connections up here were actually soldered. They're not. That's just the color of the wire. So this was just shoved through, done the same way as the remote start. I thought this guy was soldered because of coloration, but the color is just the wire. Take this phone. So I judged a little quickly on this one. Here we go. Alright, so I've got stuff like this going on here. There's speaker wire connected to power and ground here at the radio. And I want to investigate these and see what kind of connections we've got here. Okay, that guy's soldered. Let's look over here and see what we've got. Electrical tape. There we go. These guys are just twisted together. So that's twisted. I'm assuming I'm going to find the same thing here. Yeah, just twisted, no solder. Let's take a look up here. It actually has a small amount of solder on it. Let's check these guys out. Small amount of solder there. And if you come over, this is remote start stuff. You can see all these guys were wrapped around here and soldered. But this guy was shoved inside of this guy and they were just taped. So if I start pulling these guys here off, I'm sure we're gonna find, yeah, that's just wrapped with tape. I guarantee you every single one of these is the same. Look at that, that's just, that's your security remote start connections. None of these are soldered. They're just, sorry for the focus, they're just wrapped and taped. More sound deadening. At first glance, the sound deadening looks good on this door, but a little tug, it comes right off. And again, you guys have seen my videos, the exterior door skin versus the interior door skin. You should put that effort on the large, flat exterior skin, not so much the inner. There's other ways to combat sound treatment with that inner door skin. But again, this is what was done to the vehicle. I'm going to let you guys see it because I shot the video for the owner to see. Okay, so these door panels, people were talking about the upholstery on these doors and how it looks. One thing I noticed on the front door panel is this piece here. That's just power cable wrapped, and it was shoved in there to take up the gap. If you go back and look at the pictures, it was shoved in to take up the gap. So let's take a look at this guy. That's also power cable. So now that that's done, let's go over here and take a look. With the door panels off, you can see Dynamat was applied to these doors. So let me crawl in here and we'll take a look and see how well it was applied. You can see how dusty this is here. Let's see if it's actually, yeah, it's kind of what I expected. You can see it's stuck pretty well around that speaker, but it's kind of like this door. You can see where it was stuck on that door. You can see where it was poorly stuck on that door. That one was in better shape. But none of this, guys, this is doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. Anytime you have sound deadening stuck to the cables on the door, it's not accomplishing anything. It's actually stuck pretty good down there. All right, passenger side rear door. This one was done a little differently. You can see, well, you can't see it now. On the other door, go back and look at the video. There was sound deadening wrapped around this. On this one, you see that gap here. I haven't touched this. You see that gap here. And what this wire was, it ran up to the tweeter that was mounted up here in the door panel. So this guy's just hanging out and leaking everything through that hole. So there is no front wave, back wave isolation going on there. Alright, so that one's pretty much cleared off. This guy's going to come out. That speaker will come out and the entire door will get cleaned. Since he is going to do SPL with it, everything in here is going to get deadened. The floor get completely deadened. The doors, ceiling. There's going to be a lot of sound deadening material in this vehicle. There's no solder there, that's just wrapped around. We got a crimp connector right next to it, another crimp connector. So I found that, it looked suspect. I said, you know what, let me take a look at this guy. So there's what we've got there. And if I tug and pull on this, that wire will come out of there, but there's really no point. So that is the teardown of the vehicle. It's down to bare metal at this point, except for the headliner. The roof of the vehicle is torn down and it is actually sound deadened. I have a ton of second skin material to go in this, give it a full sound treatment like I did on the Audi. And Nick, the owner of the Audi, said this is like driving a studio. It's that quiet. So it's going to be a big build in this van. We're going to do single seat competition, 2-seat competition. We're going to have SPL. It's going to have a tailgate system. And oh, by the way, we're doing single seat and 2-seat with 2 different SQ systems. So you guys are going to want to follow this. There's a ton of equipment that's going in, less than it had before, but it's going to go in a much more precise, much more well installed, much more aesthetically pleasing way. So I know it's been a long video, but I wanted you guys to see the full scope of what I'm getting into with this build, and now you guys can see how it progresses from this point going forward. See you guys next time.